Was Prince William and Catherine's tour an epic failure? That's what so many royal commentators are talking about right now. And they're saying that the couple during their tour of the Caribbean seemed out of touch. They were doing photo opportunities that they shouldn't have. They were shaking people's hands through a fence instead of ignoring them. Yes, that is a legitimate complaint. And so it begs the bigger question. Why are so many people considering this a failure despite the massive crowds that showed up to see them? And I want to argue with you that it's really about the media narrative. That's where the negativity is coming from. And it's being driven by people like Omid Scobie and, by extension, Meghan Markle, who really want to put the harshest light on the monarchy. And so we'll be discussing that today. And when you watch the end, let me know what you think. Hi guys, my name is Brittany. Welcome to Royal News Network. We discuss a lot of things on this channel, but it's mostly dedicated to royals. We talk about news, gossip, commentary, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and even history. And so if you guys would like to subscribe, that would be great. So just to look back, Prince William and Catherine have just ended their tour of the Caribbean. And needless to say, it did not go off without a hitch. So the couple, this is their kind of first big tour after 2020 and all the lockdowns and everything. And so this is their first time to really go out within the Commonwealth and meet with the people. Obviously, they did this in part to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That was a huge factor in it. Obviously, a lot of these countries in the Caribbean are considering, not making the Queen or the future monarch the head of state anymore, which is completely their prerogative if they want to do that. And so the couple really stepped into a lot of controversy that wasn't really their making, and situations and things were taken completely out of context and out of their control. So the tour kind of started off on a bad leg initially. And when I first heard this report, I was like, well, how did this happen? Because these tours, you have to understand, they're kind of designed by the Foreign Office and the couple staff and the host government. So there's very specific steps that are made in order to kind of make this all come together. And these are very, very structured and planned out events. And so it turned out that one of the places the couple was going to visit, a cocoa farm, came out and said, no, we don't want them, because colonialism, reparations, and this like small minority group of people in this little village decided to protest. And other people in the village were upset by this because they were looking forward to the couple's visit, only to be told at the last minute that the couple were scrapping it. And so that happened before they even took off. And so it kind of started the tour off on a little bit of a negative note. And I think that was probably Catherine and William's. I don't think they really made many mistakes, but that was one of the first mistakes. I think, honestly, they should have just kind of ignored it, because I think that gave people like Omid Scobie and others who really want to push this racist monarchy narrative, it gave them a foothold in the rest of the tour. And this kind of narrative continued throughout. And the couple got a lot of negative kind of coverage, but not from the host countries as much, but from the US and the UK. And so they kind of stopped in Belize. They had what seemed like a lovely time. They went to a different cocoa village. But ironically, of course, the people in the original cocoa village were upset because they wanted the couple to come. There was even a guy who was going to present them with a portrait that he painted, and he wasn't able to. So it really just, a couple of rotten fruit ruined it for everyone. And I honestly wonder if there weren't some NGOs that were like, yeah, you should protest. You should protest. Because there is a lot of this kind of negative anti-monarchy, Marxist tendencies within some of these communities, and something they're really pushing here in the United States as well. So the couple decided to pull out of that first engagement. They seem to have a lovely time for the rest of their time, but in Jamaica, there was kind of a much bigger push for reparations and colonialism, and demanding that the royal family apologize for something that happened when Queen Elizabeth I was on the throne in like the 15 and 1600s. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, because every person has to apologize for everything their ancestors did, regardless of how long ago it was and how ancient it was, because that's the time we're living in right now. So the couple met with the Jamaican Prime Minister, and this also kind of went off on a bad foot, because the Jamaican Prime Minister immediately kind of told him, yeah, we appreciate you visiting, but, we're looking to our future, and basically you and the monarchy are not in it. Like, the couple had not even had the chance to sit down before he kind of blew this on them and kind of dismissed their visit, even though they were going there to visit his country and promote his country. Immediately was like, nah, we don't really want you here. And so And there was just a lot of, and then in Jamaica as well, kind of the big thing that kind of really Omid Scobie ran with was this picture of Catherine and William shaking hands through a chain link fence. And so the couple did this because obviously children have gathered, people have gathered, they want to see them, they want to visit with them. And this was impromptu, and they went over and they shook their hands. And of course people are calling foul. It's showing, you know, the history of colonialism and racism, you know, because they were kind enough to go over to a fence and shake their hands when they should have ignored them. I mean, that's kind of where the media narrative was going. It's like, well, there was no good answer to that, and there's no way you can control that. There are fences around soccer pitches. That's not unheard of by any stretch of the imagination. But this kind of narrative continued. Omid Scobie really kicked it up, and a lot of royal reporters kind of started running with it. And it's really there's a lot of articles out now. This tour was a failure. They looked terrible because in Jamaica as well, they were kind of reenacting something that the Queen did, and they stood in this Land Rover as they were driven around, even though that was a request from Jamaica. That wasn't a request the couple did. They were kind of reenacting something the Queen and Prince Philip has done. It's her 70th, you know, it's her platinum jubilee, 7 years on the throne. And so this continued into the Bahamas. The couple kind of rose above it all and were just trying to be very gracious. They looked like they had great fun in the Bahamas. There were a lot of rainstorms, so they came to a school and it was pouring, and they met with children, and Catherine gave a speech. And then the couple as well, you know, went sailing a bit, and there was like a competition because both of them are very competitive, and they've done these competitive sails before while on tour. It's kind of a tradition now. They're either in a canoe racing or in their sailboat racing because they're very, very competitive. And so, and they got soaked because it started pouring again. They were in the water. And so, I mean, they were very game for like the whole time of this tour. They did a fantastic job reaching out to people. They met with victims of the hurricane, and there were just some fantastic, fantastic pictures. But this colonialism reparations story absolutely refused to die. And so many people were asking, was this tour a failure? And does this mean that royal tours are going to change in the future? I think that's a possibility. But I really think the royal family has to pump the brakes and really think about this before they take things too far. Because it wasn't that Kate and William did anything wrong. It's just that the environment has changed, especially in the United States when it comes to this issue, and not for the better. So many people are talking about, and it's been written about quite a lot, mostly in the UK and the US, that Catherine and William and the rest of the royal family must unequivocally apologize for their ancestors' role in slavery that happened hundreds of years ago, and offer financial reparations. Reparations are this idea that because of, you know, the history and legacy of slavery, people who are not slaves, who just happen to be descended of slaves, deserve some sort of cash reward for that institution that they had nothing to do with. That was, you know, I can't remember when the last actual slave died in the United States, but it was well over several decades ago. I can't remember exactly the right year. I'll pop it in down below. But this idea of reparations is just continuing. And so let me read you some of the comments I read, because I thought it was really interesting. And I'll explain to you, I'm actually a historian, so I have read about horrific things that have happened in history. There's kind of this saying in history, the victors write history. And we kind of look at this as a hugely negative thing, that anybody who did anything to victimize another people group in history must apologize and offer reparations. That's how the media narrative is going. But will that fix anything? And is that necessary? And will that really fix what we think is wrong in society? And the answer is no. You can ask any winner of the lottery. Does the lottery change your life? Absolutely. Did it make your life better? A lot of them will say no. Some of them died, they got addicted, they were murdered. Like, there can be bad things that happen when you win the lottery. So why are we touting this as a fix for what's going on. So let me read you a couple of kind of the interesting things that I found. One person said, my grandparents could trace generations back to slavery, but they died leaving Jamaica was fully independent. Imagine 60 years later and it's still an extension of the British Empire. It's an infant colony, not standing alone. This was somebody who was in Jamaica. It wasn't another person said it wasn't a real failure, but I wouldn't deem it a regal success either. One professor of Wilberforce Institute in the study of slavery and emancipation at the University of Hull says he wants the royal family to acknowledge and apologize for the family's role in the slave trade, including through memorial visits to sites connected with slavery, such as Kingston Harbor, to express sorrow instead of upbeat photo ops. They should recognize that members of the royal family from Charles II to William IV were involved with and supported slavery and the slave trade, and that is a part of their past. One person believes this visit smacks of political opportunism and is disturbingly self-serving. Rosalia Hamilton said that there is a growing understanding of the legacies of colonialism today and the economic, sociological, and psychological impact, and the trauma of slavery has affected the confidence level and a population living in unhealthy, unsanitary, unsafe conditions. So the British Empire ended slavery officially in 1807, and by 1834 this had extended to the Bahamas. So why are people living in the Bahamas now? The direct impact of slavery ended almost 200 years ago in that country. So why is it all of a sudden that the unsanitary, unsafe conditions that you're citing now are the direct result of slavery, not bad governance, bad policies, bad decision making? Why can nothing be fixed except making another government pay for you? That just doesn't make any sense. But that's the kind of media environment we're living in. The Daily Telegraph's Camilla Tominey said, the days of us accepting royals walking around foreign climes, not addressing the elephant in the room, which is our imperialism and colonial past, is over. William and Kate, of course, have to accept some of the dissent that they encounter when they go on these tours. The truth of the matter is, because of the Queen's performance on the throne and her solid support of the Commonwealth countries, she remains sacrosanct. Are there going to be more countries flirting with republicanism when we have King Charles III on the throne? Well, yes, maybe. I think that's definitely true. I think once Charles is on the throne, a lot of countries will consider becoming independent. there's a huge amount of respect for the Queen. Nobody is doubting that. And so I think countries moving towards independence, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think the way this is going about is very, very putting pressure on people who had nothing to do with the slave trade. Catherine and William had nothing to do with the slave trade. And so why are they apologizing for something that they really had nothing to do with? And so, but this is the comment I thought was most interesting and most telling. This is from Naomi Evans, founder of the Everyday Racism Project. She says, there's been such an awakening of how racism, capitalism, colonialism, enslavement of people has impacted our everyday lives, and people are starting to see how problematic two people who have directly benefited from colonialism and the empire, walking around smiling, laughing, how that actually is not adding anything to these countries. There's absolutely no need for them. What do they represent? What message you're saying when you're sending people who have been colonized, stolen from other countries, and you're sending representatives over there? For what? I don't understand what the purpose is of them, unless it's to go and apologize and start talking about how you repaired the damage. I think Candace Owens was really on point. She is a, kind of a political commentator here in the United States. She is conservative, but she is also Black. And she was making comments about Meghan Markle, and I think she really hit the nail on the head for all of this when she said that Meghan Markle just doesn't have a respect or like of history, and in fact maybe a hatred of it, and that extends to Hollywood as well. And I think we're seeing that here. So Naomi is asking, well, what do they represent? They represent history, they represent tradition, they represent culture, they represent our collective the foundation, of how our world works today is hugely impacted by the British and what they did. Now, you could say the colonialism was a terrible thing. Obviously, some actions that were undertaken during colonialism were a terrible thing. Absolutely. But the British and other Europeans, they just happened to be the people who decided to go out and venture forth. They just happened to be the ones to do it. China actually ventured forth and decided, nah, we want to be more internal. We don't want to talk to other countries. But conquering has been a part of history since its founding. Like in the Bible, one of the first things the first family of the Bible did was one brother killed the other brother, Cain and Abel. Like, there's always been conquering, there's always been fighting. This idea that it's solely European, people of European descent that are the bearers of all negativity in history is just plain wrong. And it's also just putting a lot of emphasis on people who, if you go back throughout time, there's something that every person's that you could apologize about for your ancestors from any time period in history. I went back and I did some ancestry digging on my side, and there was one side of the family where a member he fought in the Civil War ended up getting in a land dispute and was shot. So should I track down the family of the man who descended from the shooter and ask that and demand that they apologize for killing him? No, that's just silly. And obviously slavery is a grave, grave sin, but slavery has existed throughout history as well. It doesn't, and I think I've been thinking through this as well, kind of how do you look at it? Because obviously slavery has existed throughout history, but it was kind of unique during the U.S. South America colonial times because they were taking people from another continent and moving them to a different place. And that hadn't happened before. But then I also kind of realized, well, that really didn't happen too much before because people weren't going to another continent. And so if other people could have done it too, why is it the Europeans who are the demons of history rather than, well, anybody else would have done it too? I mean, you look at Genghis Khan and he conquered all throughout Europe. You look at the Muslims and all the territory they conquered all the way up through France and all the way up through Eastern Europe. And so why is it just the Europeans who are the people who must apologize? And that's because there's really this hatred of history and using history as a weapon to punish people that you don't like and that you feel like owe you something. That's what I feel like is going on here. Catherine and William, I think, struck the exact right tone for this. And I hope William holds the line, because if he doesn't, he opens up a whole can of worms. Because like I was saying earlier, I think them canceling that one event in Belize really gave people a foothold to kind of go, oh yeah, they're capitulating to it, this and us, and oh man, we can get them for this. And so this is part of what William said when he gave his speech, and I think it's very good. And then he also had a statement as he left. So let me read you part of his speech here that he gave in Jamaica. He said, I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent and it should never have happened. While the pain runs deep, Jamaica continues to forge its future with determination, courage, and fortitude. The strength and shared sense of purpose of the Jamaican people, represented in your flag and motto, celebrate an invincible spirit. And I think that was the exact right tone for him to hit. And then he did it again in a statement he gave while he was leaving the country, which many people have pointed out is kind of a historic statement. And he said, foreign tours are an opportunity to reflect. You learn so much. What is on the minds of prime ministers, the hopes and ambitions of school children, the day-to-day challenges faced by families and communities. I know that this tour has brought into even sharper focus questions about the past and the future. In Belize, Jamaica, and the Bahamas, that future is for the people to decide upon. But we have thoroughly enjoyed spending time with communities in all three countries and understanding more about the issues that matter most to them. Catherine and I are committed to service. For us, that's not telling people what to do. It is about serving and supporting them in whatever way they think best by using the platform we are lucky to have. It is why tours such as this reaffirm our desire to serve the people of the Commonwealth and to listen to communities around the world. Who the Commonwealth chooses to lead its family in the future isn't what is on my mind. What matters to us is the potential the Commonwealth family has to create a better future for the people who form it, and our commitment to serve and support the best support as best we can. For William, I think he was striking the perfect note. It's acknowledging the past, but not apologizing for it. Because once he begins to apologize for it, capitulating to the crowd, they're going to demand more and more and more from him and the rest of the royal family. You know, that could be reparations, get rid of everything in your vaults because it belongs to all these other people. It's just a very dangerous road to go down because people are using history as a weapon to punish others and to try to get something out of it. Will giving every Bahamian, $10,000 fix their lives? No. It may make some of their lives better. Oh, sure, absolutely. But will it fix everything? No. And I don't think again, money is not the answer. And so it's just very interesting to kind of look at this and also see as well. I feel bad for Catherine and William because I feel like these countries were using them as well. So Catherine and William, these tours were discussed with the Home Office, the host country. After they left Belize, like literally days later or the day after, the Belize said, yeah, we're thinking about making a constitutional, we're thinking about getting rid of the monarchy too. And then it's like, well, why have Catherine and William visit at all? If you're just going to get rid of the monarchy, you should have just told them from the jump that these tours were going to be not about saving them from removing the Queen or Charles, its head of state, but about reevaluating this relationship. I feel like a lot of these countries just took advantage of Catherine and William and their star power to kind of bolster their own countries. And then it put Catherine and William in this negative light. And people like Omid Scobie, who is very much has been considered a friend of Meghan Markle, I think he likes the attention. So he likes to cause controversy. He said Prince William was racist before he left on the tour. Now he's saying it again. Prince William, Kate Middleton, or Duchess of Cambridge, is a racist, has been trending on Twitter from time to time. And so it's really this way of kind of continuing the argument Meghan Markle made. Meghan Markle, on her interview with Oprah, said the sole reason she couldn't function within the monarchy is that the whole institution itself is racist. And so this has given people, the detractors from the monarchy, a step in to kind of try to dismantle it by portraying the entire monarchy as racist, which I don't think that it is. So Prince William and Catherine have a very, very difficult, it's a tightrope walk that they're doing. I think that, obviously discussions are going to be had of how this tour went wrong, what could have been done better. They have a very new team because some of their kind of senior members left over the pandemic, particularly Jason Knaff, who left for India with his husband. And so he's been kind of one of their senior advisors for a very, very long time. It's been 2 years since anybody's really done a foreign tour, so everybody's still kind of new. So I'm sure there'll be discussions that happen, but I really hope that Prince William and Catherine kind of ignore the naysayers and detractors and look at themselves in this tour and go, okay, some things went wrong, some things went right. But right now we need to ignore the media establishment because they have a narrative. It's a Marxist narrative that they're pushing. They're pushing it here in the United States. They may say this is for reconciliation. It's to help everybody. No, it's put to put a certain group of people on top and everybody else underneath. It's a Marxist system. That's what this is. That's what they're pushing. Because if they can, and it's against history, I think, in a lot of ways. History is about striving and overcoming. It's not about somebody apologizing and giving you things. It's about overcoming adversity. It's about overcoming challenges. That's what history is all about, and that's why I love it. And that's why I love Royals and Royals tours. Royals represent a legacy of history that's been mostly unbroken. And, the British monarchy goes back to 1066. And so 1066, William the Conqueror came over to England. So since we're all in this reparations and conquering, the badness of conquering, should the English go over to the French of Normandy and go, you owe us an apology for King William the Conqueror who came over in 1066, 1,000 years ago. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so I think the whole thing is just this terrible media narrative that's gotten way out of hand. I think it's brought along a lot of negativity, not only to this tour, but in the United States, we see it all the time. And it's become very, very damaging, I think. And so it's concerning to see that it's continuing to grow and that Kate and William really became the victims of a concerted and dedicated media campaign to really portray them in the most negative light possible. And so I think that's deeply unfair to them and the work that they're doing. They did a great job on these tours. And so I hope they don't take all this to heart, that they ignore most of it. Yes, maybe royal tours I think will look different in the future. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But don't, Prince William and Catherine, please don't take this stuff to heart, because it is driven by people who have no desire for your family, what you represent. If they could tear down all the palaces and the institutions, they would, because they want to put themselves on top. Rather than, not that Kate and William are on top, but they represent this line of history that's unbroken. And if you can damage history and rewrite it into your own making, then I fear for us all. So guys, let me know what you think. Obviously, this is a little different. I don't know if I struck the exact right note here, but let me know in the comments down below. I just think this whole thing is really unfortunate, and I look forward to their next tour, and hopefully with their children. That would be fantastic. Maybe we'll get one this summer that'll be a little bit better. And so guys, let me know what you think, and I look forward to seeing you again really, really soon. Bye.